He says because
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, good evening, sir. How you doing? Good. Happy Thursday.
See, you got that basic language. You hold the baby in.
Hey, Ralph.
Let's go with that. It's not the lack of sleep or anything.
Yeah.
Southwest is that.
Because it's nice to go in.
I wrote it down. It's on that sheet of paper right there in front of you.
This is so hot.
Yeah, so this is tomato mozzarella and SW is Southwest. Don't care.
It's just not that hard, right?
Excellent choices, Christine.
Good. So I'm gonna leave this table askew for a minute
Oh, great.
because I have to play with the volume of that before, when the meeting starts.
Because you can't get less.
Yeah.
There's a new one for you downstairs at the front desk.
Maybe that's what we just talked about. Long way.
We just pushed it. Evaluation take
Decided to
considerations. So Karen got some ideas about how.
DC here.
So.
One lady.
I did.
It won't happen.
Hey, good.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask her, but that's not.
Wednesday, I don't know if I would get out Tuesday, so I try to keep Wednesdays light.
I always feel on Monday, like,
Yeah, I had to be in Springfield for an agent given in DC is playing travel this weekend as a guest in the Battlefield tournament.
Hey, how are you?
So I had to get her to practice and then a regular practice, so I'm ready to go to bed.
Where's the Battlefield?
Veterans Park. Yeah.
I went to last round, so I've still got, after this election, I still have 2 more years. And then I'm done.
It's always interesting adding the.
Then you're done? You're not gonna run anymore?
I never do that. Now, I just look back to my
Got to spend some time with your vice mayor at VML this past weekend.
Oh, yeah, they did the big thing.
He seems like a nice guy.
Billy's not running.
Sorry?
Billy's not running.
Really?
Yeah, he's up for election, and he decided not to run.
It just was so funny how my son lives on.
You're gonna have to pick her up. He's coming from Springfield. I'm gonna retreat at her.
One of him and his dad rents one of the apartments that are above the pub there on Hanover Street.
I live on that.
So.
I'm at 1300. I'm up by where the college, rugby field, the track. Lives above Cape Ryan.
Yeah.
Him and his girlfriend both graduated from UNW, so they
And they moved down there during COVID. I think they were looking for a degree experience. And they thought, but they love it. They just got engaged. So,
Okay, thank you so much.
people are gonna see me eat all the camera, right?
So I just.
Inevitably. So she's gonna be about 10 minutes late tonight. So she'll be here about 7:10. I would defer to, you. I don't think you have the forum yet. Way.
You know,
You need the underline stuff or?
I just like, yeah, like most of the first grade ones, they're just awesome.
So we have an inventory. Apparently a ribbon cutting in a school. She's doing that and rushing over here. There she is, right on time.
Not late.
Oh, right. Well, on occasions.
We have our moments.
Madam Chair's over late. She arrived exactly what she means to.
I'm speaking as somebody who's relevant. Serious sunshine.
But you're really late, so
You've got speech.
perfect.
Yes.
Just gonna turn up the volume on our conference call.
We do. No one has called in the conference call yet, so it's calling music. So I don't want to turn it off. Can I maybe move this back
Sure.
so that whenever somebody calls in, we just turn up the volume? Up and down.
Free conference call, .com.
That's right.
There's one that does a variation of Charlie and the MTA. And they've got a song about sitting on hold forever instead of riding the train system forever, but sitting on hold waiting for your phone to start.
Are we ready?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Everyone's online?
Well,
Delegate Guzman.
Delegate Guzman plans to call in, but she hasn't yet. If she had, we wouldn't be hearing music.
Okay. Okay, so I'll now call this meeting to order. Public access is being provided by live streaming the meeting on PRTC's YouTube channel. This information was on PRTC's website, Facebook page, at the Transit Center, as well as being advertised in Inside Nova and the Freeland Star. Commissioners Guzman and Lamb have asked to participate in this meeting remotely via conference call. PRTC bylaws, Article 4, Section 2 states the commission must approve this request by a majority vote. Section 2 also states the remote location and the specific nature of the personal matter need to be reflected in the minutes. Is Commissioner Lamb on?
No, Madam
Neither
Chair.
is Guzman.
Neither one of them has called in yet.
Okay, so should we do the
You
motion
can
or
do that
wait?
when they call in, Madam Chair.
Okay.
That would be fine.
So we can skip. Okay. So we'll now move into the invocation and pledge of allegiance. If we can please all stand. Bow our heads. Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve once again. We thank you for bringing us into this space, and we ask that you just give us wisdom and knowledge to push our community forward. In our Father and Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
You please say the pledge. Our pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Christine, will you please call the roll?
Christine, can the alternate sit?
No, because Prince William County has its full complement of commissioners.
Supervisor Bailey is not here yet.
Oh, yes, you're right. I apologize.
Okay, I was wondering, because we're missing two.
Yeah. Yes. Victor Angry, Andrea Bailey, Kenny Bodie,
Here.
Margaret Franklin,
Here.
Janine Lawson.
Here.
Yesley Vega.
Here.
Pete Canlon, Maggie Hansford, Kalai Kandasamy.
Here.
Kim Short, Benny Smith, Ann Wheeler, Tanisha Allen, Cindy Lamb, Meg Bonke, Thomas Cohen, Pamela Sebesky.
Here.
Ralph Smith.
Here.
Jeanette Rischel.
Here.
Preston Banks, Alana Mensing, Daryl Moore, Matthew Kelly,
Here.
Jason Graham, Deborah Frazier,
Here.
Gary Skinner,
Here.
Tim McLaughlin, David Ross, Jennifer Mitchell, Jennifer DeBrule, Todd Horsley,
Here.
Lee Carter, Elizabeth Guzman, George Barker. Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay.
Someone there?
If we can go back to,
Hello?
yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
So I'll just read again. Commissioners Guzman and Lamb have asked to participate in this meeting remotely via conference call. PRTC bylaws, Article 4, Section 2 states the commission must approve this request by a majority vote. Section 2 also states the remote location and the specific nature of the personal matter need to be reflected in the minutes. Commissioner Guzman, will you please state your remote location and the reason for your remote participation?
Madam Chair, I am right now in Commuter County. I'm also leading an event with the Chamber of Commerce. So I have to meet back to back, and I do not make it a time if I go back to Greenfield County to your location. It's about an hour away.
She's leaving the Chamber of Commerce event in Fauquier County.
Thank you. And is Commissioner Lamb on the line? Okay.
Madam Chair, would you mind repeating, so for those who were unable to hear Commissioner Guzman?
Sure. So Commissioner Guzman is in Fauquier County leaving a Chamber of Commerce event.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
what about the other commissioner?
She's not on the line yet, so
Okay,
when she
so
comes,
do we take a formal vote?
yes. Yes, there needs to be a motion and then a second. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Chair.
Hold on one second. There is a motion by Mayor Rischel to approve the remote participation request. There was a second by Supervisor Bodie. Discussion, Supervisor Vega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to clarify that that is an excusable reason for not
It
being here
is,
in
yes.
person under the rules.
It's excusable under the state code?
Under the FOIA, she can take for a personal reason. She can participate remotely, and she is using a personal reason for that.
Okay.
So it's acceptable. Yes, ma'am. I apologize, Madam Chair, for not asking first to be recognized.
Any other discussion? Christine, will you please call the roll?
Kenny Bodie,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson,
No.
Nestle Vega,
Aye.
Kalai Kandasamy.
Aye.
Pamela Sabeski,
Yes.
Jeanette Rischel,
Yes.
Matthew Kelly,
Yes.
Deborah Frazier,
Yes.
Gary Skinner,
Yes.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
We'll now move into agenda item 4, approval of the agenda for October 7th. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I so move.
Moved by Ms. Sabeski. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kelly. Can we please call the roll?
Kenny Bodie,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Aye.
Nestle Vega,
Aye.
Kalai Kandasamy.
Aye.
Pamela Sabeski,
Aye.
Jeanette Rischel,
Yes.
Matthew Kelly,
Yes.
Deborah Frazier,
Yes.
Gary Skinner,
Yes.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
We'll now move into item 5, approval of the minutes for September 2nd. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Madam Chair.
Moved by Ms. Frazier. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Bodie. Any discussion? Christine, will you please call the roll?
Kenny Bodie,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson,
Abstain?
Nestle Vega,
Aye.
Kalai Kandasamy,
Aye.
Tanisha Allen, Pamela Sabeski,
Aye.
Jeanette Rischel,
Yes.
Matthew Kelly,
Aye.
Deborah Frazier,
Aye.
Gary Skinner,
Abstain.
Jennifer, Todd Horsley,
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman.
Delegate Guzman.
Aye.
Madam Chair, do we have to take a roll call and everything? Or
Yes, I had asked the question with permission.
Okay.
So we asked that question once we gathered, must we do that or as voice votes? Per legal counsel, the recommendation was to continue the roll call votes for all of them.
That is correct. I do apologize for the tediousness of it. We had a voting board, you could vote on the voting board.
We'll now move into item 6, the VRE Executive Officers Time. Mr. Dalton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Commission members and others. You do have the CEO report in your package and other materials from the September VRE Operations Board meeting. So I'll just give you a brief overview. System-wide on-time performance for the month of September was 85%. Our ridership for the month of September continued to increase to nearly 15,000 riders per week on average, or about 3,000 average daily riders. We continue to monitor the projections for return to work from employers in the region and anticipate ridership to continue to increase at a slow pace over the next several months. Staff continue to work primarily from remote work environments as our own return to work plans have been somewhat stalled as well. We continue to maintain a continuity of operations with all business functions operating effectively. And then I wanted to mention that after a one-year hiatus, VRE will once again participate in the Clifton Day Festival this Sunday, October 10th. So trying to make a plug here for attendance. VRE will provide service to and from the event from our Manassas, from stations on the Manassas line between the Manassas station and Rolling Road. It is the only time of year, of course, that VRE trains stop at the historic town of Clifton. The train ride to Clifton is free. So if you board the train at a station, get on VRE train, it's free out to Clifton, but then you have to pay to get back. So it's $5 for adults, children, and I believe kids under 2 are free. Riding VRE, of course, is the best way to get to the event because the local parking fills up pretty quick. So you can find additional information about the event on VRE.org. And just as a reminder, face coverings, face masks are required while on board VRE trains at all times. And I will say that ticket policy is not set by us, that's set by the Clifton Betterment Association. So they just pay us to operate the trains. That's the end of my CEO report, Madam Chair.
Are there any questions for Mr. Dalton, Supervisor Bodie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Dalton, as always. Just a quick question in regards to vaccines. As you all know, the boosters are now available and third doses for folks. How is that working out for you and your team? Are you able to get all the vaccines that your team needs to keep themselves vaccinated?
The short answer is yes. In fact, just within the last week and a half, for those on the staff that meet the requirements, the 6 month and the Pfizer, have just started getting called back. We all did ours through the Alexandria Health Department, so we're just now getting the option to bring the booster shot back. I will say I got mine yesterday. Good to go.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Any other questions for Mr. Dalton? We will move into 6.2 action item, which is the referral of the preliminary FY 2023 VRE operating and capital budgets to member jurisdictions. Mr. Dawson, would you like to give a general overview?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, we're seeking authorization to refer the preliminary budget, operating and capital budgets to our member jurisdictions. And of course, from this action, VRE staff will consider and address comments from the jurisdictions and forward a final recommended budget to the operations board at our meeting in December of 2021, followed by consideration and referral to the commissions for adoption in January of 2022. Do have our Chief Financial Officer, Mark Schofield. He's going to step up and just give you a quick overview on where we're at. Again, this is the preliminary budget. We still have a couple months left in this process. So Madam Chair and commission members, Mark Schofield.
Thank you, Rich, and good evening, commission members. Our preliminary FY23 operating budget totals $96.7 million, which includes operations, maintenance, and existing debt service. Excuse me. Our preliminary 2023 capital budget includes commitments of approximately $86 million from state, regional, local, and federal sources. We continue to work closely with DRPT and the new DPRA to advance our capital projects that are a part of the larger Transforming Rail in Virginia, or TRV program, that will be expanding commuter rail and intercity passenger rail across the Commonwealth. Without going into all the details, of course, the sort of overarching question with the FY 2023 budget is the return of ridership, as Rich indicated. I'll be honest, we're probably about a year behind where we hoped that we would be. As Rich indicated, ridership right now is at about that 3,000 riders per day. We are projecting for FY '23 approximately 8,000 riders per day on average. That's over the course of the year. We hope, of course, that that would be ramping up over the course of the year. That's only slightly more than the 6,000 riders a day that we had originally projected for 2022. So again, things are just slower coming back than we had hoped. We have sufficient pandemic relief in the form of CARES, CRISA, and the American Rescue Plan to backfill that lost passenger revenue that we anticipate for FY '23. And then we have more if needed, if that ridership gap continues beyond '23. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have, but I'll leave it there.
Any questions? Supervisor Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mark, can you just remind me, what is the cost of the Long Bridge? I just was having a conversation with somebody the other day and I could not remember the price tag.
Approximately $2 billion.
$2 billion, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Allen?
Can't speak very loudly. You said it was 6,000 projected in 2023, and then, but instead it's going to be 8,000.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Our original projection for the year that we're in right now, 2022, was 6,000 riders a day. And right now we're at about 3,000 riders.
Then 23
So-
projected 8,000.
Yes, that's right. Our projection at the moment for next year for '23 is an average of 8,000 riders a day. Again, we're hoping that that would be increasing over the course of the year, so that by the end of 2023, there would be, more than 8,000 per day. Again, we're continuing to watch and wait. We had originally anticipated a bump in ridership with Labor Day. That really hasn't transpired. A lot of the agencies and departments are now looking at the beginning of calendar 2022 to really begin to bring their employees back. So we'll be sort of watching and waiting and trying to learn from that.
Any additional questions?
Yes.
Mr. Skinner?
Hey, Mark, can you,
Yes,
you talk about the 6 and the 8,000 per day. What happens if we run out of the money provided by federal CARES Act and stuff like that? And this is probably for Rich too, and it's, what leads us to the point where we have to sort of step back and take a look, maybe not have as many crews? Or what is the plan and how long can we count on the government for backfilling the money, basically? So because we're planning on this and we're planning on that, but I don't. That's a back.
Why don't I talk about the money, and then Rich, maybe you can talk about the crews and things like that. VRE did very well with the pandemic relief. In terms of the CARES Act, we received approximately 86 million. In terms of CRISA, which was the middle act at the end of December 2020, we received about 70 million. And then in the rescue plan, we received approximately 119 million. Now, our plan at the moment is to try to use that rescue plan money for some strategic capital projects. But if it looks like things are not recovering as quickly as we hope, we could certainly revisit that plan and use that instead to support the operations.
Do you know how longer we'll be receiving funds? Is there an idea of when the government will stop doing the CARES Act and stuff like that? Again,
I think as long as we get these funds into a grant and begin to draw down on them, there really is no immediate time frame that we have to use them by. So they could last for 3, 4, 8 years.
Okay.
But in terms of reevaluating the service, Rich, I don't know if you can.
Sure, I'll just briefly say that as part of the environment that we've been in for the last year and a half, we've scenario planned all sorts of different possible solutions in the event that we do get to a point, and frankly, it would have to be in the next couple of fiscal years, right? It's not immediate. It's not likely to even be through this fiscal year 23 to look at whatever potentials, if you will, to scale the service back. But that's a discussion we're likely to be having next year at this time if the ridership recovery is less than what's anticipated. So I just assure you, we've got a lot of different scenarios planned out. There's just a lot of different elements to it, and I can surely start sharing that with folks, but I think it's a little too early actually to start getting into those level of details.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to move item 6.2 forward?
So move, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Bodie, seconded by Mayor Rischel. Any discussion? Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry,
Aye.
Kenny Bodie,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Aye.
Nestle Vega.
Aye.
Kalai Kandasamy.
Aye.
Tanisha Allen. Pamela Saveski.
Aye.
Jeanette Rischel.
Yes.
Matthew Kelly.
Aye.
Deborah Frazier.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman.
Delegate Guzman.
Yes.
George Barker.
Yes. Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
We'll now go into item 6.3 to authorize VRE CEO to amend a site license agreement for real property at Leland Road Station with GTB Towers LLC. This is a resolution to amend the site license agreement. Mr. Dawson, would you like to explain?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick summary. So VRE operates a VHF two-way radio communication system. And so we can communicate directly with our trains and our headquarters building. So we implemented the system. We started implementing it back in 07, 08. I believe we completed that around 09, 10. When we were designing the system, there was a need to stand up a tower at around the Leland Road Station. So long story short, we were able to partner up with a company that in it by agreement, they built the tower for us, and actually VRE actually owns the tower, and then we rent out space to them to facilitate putting their equipment on the tower. So this has been an arrangement that we've had for the last 10 plus years. They came back to us, and it was somewhat of a long-term arrangement. With the options and stuff, the current agreement could have went out to like 2064, but they came back to us about a year and a half ago, right about the time the Sprint T-Mobile merger happened. And what happened was they basically, there wasn't, the need for equipment on those towers because of that merger actually reduced. So they came back and said, hey, if we can't reduce our payment a little bit to you guys, then we're just going to abandon the tower. One of the attributes of having it's the current tower company. One of the attributes of having them there is they can maintain the tower for us, and they can actually service the equipment, stuff like that. So we really didn't want to lose that. So we negotiated with them, and basically last year they were paying us about $32,000 a year. We were negotiated, almost reset that back to the base fee back in 2010 to about $25,000 a year with a fixed 3% escalation, and basically restructured the option terms. So now we have like 6 5-year options, so it could go out for the next 30 years. So for those that weren't around at that time, that was the deal that we put in place. So that's my summary, Madam Chair.
Are there any questions?
Madam Chair, I move item 6.3 for approval.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lawson, seconded by Supervisor Bodie. Any discussion? Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Andrea Bailey.
Aye.
Kenny Bodie.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Aye.
Nestle Vega.
Aye.
Tanisha Allen. Pamela Saveski.
Aye.
Jeanette Rischel.
Yes.
Matthew Kelly.
Aye.
Deborah Frazier.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman.
Delegate Guzman.
Yes.
And George Barker.
Yes.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. We'll now move into 6.4 to authorize closed meeting of PRTC to discuss a personnel matter concerning the VRE CEO's performance evaluation. Ms. Pandak, will you please read the authorization?
Yes, Madam Chair. Whereas the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission desires to convene into closed meeting for discussion of personnel matter concerning the Virginia Railway Express Chief Executive Officer's performance evaluation. And whereas pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission does hereby authorize discussion of the aforesaid matter in closed meeting.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lawson, seconded by Supervisor Bodie. Any discussion? Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Andrea Bailey.
Aye.
Kenny Bodie.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Aye.
Nestle Vega.
Yes.
Tanisha Allen. Pamela Savesky.
Yes.
Jeanette Richel.
Yes.
Matthew Kelly.
Aye.
Deborah Frazier.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman.
Delegate Guzman.
Aye.
And George Barker.
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Are we going in right now?
If you'll give just a minute, Carl is gonna come in and turn off the live stream so that this won't be going out on YouTube.
Just to confirm, these are some directions.
Madam Chair, those members of the commission and those alternates who are currently serving in the stead of members of the commission can remain in a closed meeting.
Here you go.
That's what you work for. That's why I wanted to say it. It was important. And the job, sure.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think we're ready for, you need a motion to certify that you only talked about those matters for which you properly went into closed meeting.
So move, Madam Chair.
Second.
There's a motion by Supervisor Bailey, seconded by Supervisor Bodie to certify the closed session of PRTC. Ms. Pandak, do you need to read?
No, ma'am, I don't. I think you have in your package and I summarized it.
Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry,
Aye.
Andrea Bailey,
Aye.
Kenny Bodie,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson,
Aye.
Nestle Vega,
Aye.
Tanisha Allen, Pamela Savesky,
Aye.
Jeanette Rishel,
Yes.
Matthew Kelly,
Aye.
Deborah Frazier,
Aye.
Gary Skinner,
Aye.
Todd Horsley,
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman,
Delegate Guzman.
Aye.
and George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
And now there, I believe, needs to be an amendment to CEO's contract.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion, please.
There's a motion on the floor by Supervisor Bailey,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Skinner. Any discussion? Would you like to read the motion?
I would. Madam Chair, I move that the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission approve the First Amendment to the employment agreement which Rich Dalton, and that the chair be authorized to execute it on behalf of our commission.
So move for a second, sorry.
We
Oh, you already did?
already did.
Sorry, my bad.
I think I probably did it out of order, but Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry,
Aye.
Andrea Bailey,
Aye.
Kenny Bodie,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson, Nestle Vega,
Aye.
Tanisha Allen, Pamela Savesky,
Aye.
Jeanette Rishel,
Yes.
Matthew Kelly,
Aye.
Deborah Frazier,
Aye.
Gary Skinner,
Aye.
Todd Horsley,
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman,
Delegate Guzman.
George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
And just want to highlight 6.6, some information items. This, the VRE Spending Authority report and the VRE System Plan 2040 update. Anything else, Mr. Dalton?
No, Madam Chair, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We'll now move into, item 7, public comment time. Christine, are there any public comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, one comment was received. It is from Jessica Allen. Good afternoon. I have a few questions for the board members. Will OmniRide be expanding its service to the Route 17 commuter lot in Fredericksburg to L'Enfant Plaza and the Pentagon in 2022? If not, in 2022, do you plan on making Route 17 commuter lot a route in the near future? If not, would you please consider making the commuter lot a service for those who don't necessarily feel at ease riding Vanpool, but would feel more at ease with bus service, knowing there will be reliable transportation? Thank you for your time, Jessica Allen.
Thank you. And before we move on, Mr. Schneider, I think has a couple of comments to that.
Yeah, so two things. Number one, this is south of what is traditionally known as the FredEx corridor. So this is where the hot lanes is. We've already seen the comment. Staff is going to be reaching out to this customer. We love the fact that someone wants more service. The Stafford County areas. We'll be in touch, and any of the information that we share, we'll circulate back to the board. But it's something that once the FredEx service or the construction's done, we've got plans to apply for additional funds. Plus, I believe there's DRPT potential funding, and we're working with them on that as well. So just as a general information piece, but we'll follow up with the customer.
All right, thank you. We'll now move into item 8, the consent agenda. Item 8.1. Oh, I'm sorry, 8.2, acceptance of PRTC monthly jurisdictional financial report for the period ending June 30th, 2021. And 8.3, to authorize the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission's executive director to submit the Commuter Choice Program for FY 2021 annual report to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Is there a motion?
So move, Madam Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Bailey. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Supervisor Bodie. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, just, and that is just 8.2 and 8.3, right? Because it's on the screen, it has 8.2 and 8.4.
That's a typo. We
Okay, just wanted to make sure that.
Yes, that's a typo.
Thank you for that. So yeah, 8.2 and 8.3. Any other discussion? Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry,
Aye.
Andrea Bailey,
Aye.
Kenny Bodie,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson, Yesli Vega, Tanisha Allen, Pamela Sadesky,
Aye.
Jeanette Rischel,
Yes.
Matthew Kelly,
Aye.
Deborah Frazier,
Aye.
Gary Skinner,
Aye.
Todd Horsley,
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman,
Delegate-
and George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Okay, we'll now move into item 9, Executive Director's Time. I'll turn it over to Dr. Schneider.
Yes, so item from follow-up last month, I had mentioned that we had gone to public hearing and I'd bring those comments back. We're deferring that an additional month simply because staff is working on some suggestions and ideas from the past from the riders. So they're not ready for prime time in terms of proposal, so we'll have all of that for you at the November meeting. And just to reiterate, not only do we provide the comments from the customers, we transcribe the actual meeting itself, so you hear what was generally said. So for a service update, last week, September 27th, we launched additional express services. That's our first real growth in over a year. And that placed us at about 85% of our pre-pandemic service hours. It was a modest increase. We were already around the 81, 82% range. Right now, we're right about what our traditional Fridays used to be. Fridays used to be about 85% of service. We're right at that amount right now. What's different about this is normally we would really try to push stuff out in the peaks. The services we added were at the end of the morning rush hour and the beginning of the evening rush hour because we're seeing increased demand in terms of the travel patterns. People aren't traveling at the traditional rush hour pace. Examining just our commuter services, we are currently at 35% of pre-pandemic ridership. And when you balance that against our reduced service volume, our express services are at about 50% of productivity. So if you take a look at what we were spending hours of service before, and now we're at about 50%. So we're faring much better than regional rail, as you've heard, and I'm sure you've seen, as well as WMATA's metro train service. Bus services across the country are performing better than classic commuter services for those reasons, but we're able to dial services back, which is much, much harder for other communities. The pattern shows the Pentagon remains the strongest trip generator in the region, so our direct Pentagon routes have maintained popularity overall. I would encourage everyone to spend some time with the Ridership Dashboard that is inside the packet. It breaks down by service corridor, service type, top performers, performance. It's not designed to be a long-term study of individual routes. It's a dashboard snapshot of where the performance was most recently. See, so please take a look at that. And then right behind that is the safety dashboard. So an example of that is the 90 days, current 90-day performance over last year. We have a 6.45% improvement on our safety record. And so continuing to have that year over year is a very, very good thing. COVID-19 update, we continue to focus on maintaining our stringent guidelines and encouraging any employees at PRTC and Keolis to get vaccinated as appropriate. Ms. Murdoch and I have been communicating consistently, what can we do? What incentives can we offer? It was great, tough and great to be on a conference call with my peers. And they're at 35 and 45% vaccinations among some of their workforces. We're in the 85 to 90% range. So we are blessed from that standpoint. We have a very intelligent workforce. We live in just a different part of the country, and it shows dividends. So we continue to support that. And we've offered for some employees who are not vaccinated that we will pay for a medical appointment for them to go to their doctor and have questions answered, because we are not medical professionals. We want them to get that access to information. So we said we would do that. So far, no employees have taken us up on that on the PRTC side. However, that offer remains open. We just want to let employees know what their options are and do it in a safe and constructive way. We continue to monitor the regional infection rates and act accordingly, ensuring we keep our facility clean, employees' distances, and workspaces available for drop-in. Before I turn things over to Ms. Murdoch, I wanted to mention that last week was our first professional conference that we've attended since February of 2020. Been a long time. We had more than 20 staff members from OmniRide, under the OmniRide umbrella, both Keolis and PRTC together to attend the Virginia Transit Association meeting right in Tyson's Corner. Very well attended, a great event. We had 3 different staff members present on a panel. First of all, we had Joe Stainsby, our Chief Development Officer, who discussed system redesign. Perrin Palestrant, Director of Planning and Operations, was on a panel for strategic planning. And finally, Byron Lloyd, our Director of Safety and Security, led a panel of COVID-19 response. Things we did right, things we did wrong. So it was really focused. We had Hampton Roads, Dash, a lot of different participants. Beyond the highlights of networking and technical training, which are always good, at Wednesday's award luncheon, OmniRide received the Exceptional Safety Award from VTA for not only our TSA efforts, the Gold Standard Award, but also the regional coordination. When the pandemic hit, we were all trying to solve this on our own. We put together a regional group, just the safety managers, and what was different is we pulled in the transportation department of Prince William County, which historically we had not done. So Paolo Belida and Rick Gonzalez participated, but we also had Prince William County schools. That was such a big deal because they weren't delivering school bus service, so they didn't have peers to learn from. They still to this day dial into the regional call. So for the first time ever, we have schools, highways, transit, all on the same call, all talking safety, all coordinating and trying to improve what we do. So this award is, Byron and I were lucky enough to go up on stage to pose for the pretty picture. This is a staff level award, it's an organization level award. And I'm thrilled we got another one coming so we can hang one in both facilities. So. It's nice to have an award-winning transit system. As Byron and I joke, Tom Brady better watch out. When they start giving out rings, then it'll get real. Also, our marketing department has our 35th anniversary. We've got puzzles for you. These are going to go for employees, but you're not going to be here for some of those events. We've got some food opportunities forthcoming. We'll send out some information. I'm not sure how much Althea wants to hold close together, but we're putting goodie bags together to celebrate our 35th year. And so at this point, I defer to Barbara Murdoch of Keolis to give her an update.
Thank you, Dr. Snyder. Good evening, commissioners. To show that we work collaboratively, many of the things Dr. Snyder talked about were on my list too. One is our team attended that VTA conference. Our managers were there supporting the PRTC leadership in their presentation, as well as the Keolis SVP came down to be a part of that. Some other highlights during the month is that our team collected school supplies and we delivered them during the month to Kilby Elementary School in Prince William County. And we also are currently looking at the stats that Dr. Snyder talked about. Our safety and accident rate is down. Ridership remains steady. The numbers are you can compare throughout the summer and it looks like they're going pretty steady. Of course, everyone wants to know what's ridership gonna look like. But I don't know if you saw Dr. Snyder, but on the front of Metro Magazine, it's an article about all over the country having some of the same challenges that we are having here. And we do have some challenges. It's not always great with the new facility and the service changes. We're working with the PRTC leadership and our corporate staff to look at recruitment, trying to fill the need that we need about 13 new drivers. And every time I come before you, I say, if you got relatives, friends, please send them our way if they have a CDL, because we need drivers to fill the needs of some of the service changes. So we've got a big recruitment going, and later in this month, next month, this month, October 25th, we're having a job fair. So we hope that you can send some people our way. We met, our corporate staff and our managers met with Dr. Snyder and his team to talk about vaccinations and mandates. Our company is looking towards mandating it, but just hadn't dropped the hammer yet on vaccinations. Because just like you have to come to work and you have to have a CDL, you may have to have a card saying that you've been vaccinated, but waiting to see kind of which way the state is going before making a decision that way. We started our safety management system training with operators during September, Byron. And I think you were participating, I knew about many of that. And we're working to finalize our collective bargaining agreement with our maintenance staff. And that's going really well. In November, November 13th, we're planning a health and wellness fair. Because we believe that if we bring a scientist, doctor from the Virginia Health Department, someone that people can believe that and speak to our employees, that maybe we can get our vaccination rate up. Currently, as Dr. Snyder pointed out, we're around 90%, which is just kind of unbelievable for a company this size. But that's my overview of kind of what September looked like. So if you have any questions, I'm glad to answer.
Any questions for Ms. Murdoch or Dr. Schneider? Mayor Richel and then Supervisor Bailey.
Yeah, thank you very much. When you say mandate vaccines, do you mean that they have to have the vaccine, or is there a testing option?
Yes, there will be a testing option. You have to have a vaccine or you have to be tested.
Okay, because nobody should lose their job over this.
No, the
Okay.
testing option is a part of it. We discussed that too. COVID testing as well will be part of
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Supervisor Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I love when you said the collaboration. It keeps growing and growing and growing, so thank you for that. And I wanted to ask for the health fair, is there a mental health component in your health fair?
We will consider that because we're in the planning stages, since we're talking about November, so truly that can be a component.
Thank you, thank you.
Have Supervisor Allen and Supervisor Vega. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Schneider, I'm sorry, I'm gonna take my mask down a little bit because I can't speak very loud. And this is in relation to the question from the submitted question, one of the writer from what Christine read. And Dr. Karen is very interested in that. Are you going to be setting it up and meeting, applying for the grants and getting the process ready before the hot lanes are completed, meaning getting to the Rappahannock Bridge? Or are you going to wait until that and then do it after?
We have always front loaded so that we're ready to go. I think an example of that is we had the service out of the 610 route, Garrisonville Road. We were ready to go and deliver the service 1 week before they actually opened the roads. So we had a bus and we had a driver, and the driver wasn't driving the route. They were in the driver's room ready to go, but they hadn't given the all clear for us to launch services. We were the first transit system to launch services on that corridor once they said go. So we really focus on being there well ahead of the curve.
And final question for that. How many lots are you anticipating for Route 17?
I'll have to get back to you on that. We drew up a plan based on the number of lots, and there's different routes depending on the configuration timeline. There's one route down towards Spotsylvania potentially, when Route 1, and I forget the crossroad, there was a ribbon cutting for it a month and a half ago. Yep. Supervisor Skinner was there. So we've identified a plan working with VDOT, since they are critically involved in construction, to develop the plans of services. So that's all developed. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you're gonna be sharing this with our staff on the staff side?
Yes, we did that collaboratively. And when I say they're all developed, they're not done and approved. We've just done the preliminary site plans. They've identified, okay, the lot's going to be here, the lot's going to be here. There's one that's going to be relocated. I just don't remember all the lot names, but there's a relocation of one of the lots from, I believe, the eastern side, or maybe the western side of 95 is being relocated to the eastern side. And those are some of the different things. And it's all the way down through that corridor into Spotsylvania.
Supervisor Vega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we talk about vaccination rate, you say you're at 90%. How are you arriving at this number? Are employees just volunteering that information, or are you all asking?
We did an anonymous survey. So it's I believe the question bank was essentially, did you receive are you fully vaccinated? Yes or no? Do you plan to receive a booster? Yes or no? If you have not, what are the primary reasons? Medical, religious exemption, or just prefer not to? And there was also, in the first survey, we did prefer not to answer. This time we wanted to drill down a little bit more, simply because if you said, just don't want to, then we added a question, would you be interested in meeting with a medical professional at our expense? And so it was just designed to capture, are you not, and understanding why. I believe we sat at 6 employees who are not. And of those, I think it was 2 had medical, 1 had, I just don't remember all the numbers. It was a very small percentage, and it was self-reported and anonymous. So we do not know which employees those are. but none of them said, yes, I'd like to meet with a physician to learn more.
Okay, and then my follow-up to that is, just as funds are being allocated for employees to seek medical, a medical profession to get their questions answered, should the vaccine be mandated, are you all also going to provide the testing for employees?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be free testing weekly or whatever?
I believe so. At this time, we haven't really gone that far, and that would be a policy discussion decision that I would lean on the commission's guidance for.
Supervisor Frazier and then Supervisor Bailey, then Mayor Rishel.
I just had a comment related to what you said about mental health. Tomorrow's World Mental Health Day, and mental health is health. And that's the word that we spread in our schools. And I think if we really come from those lenses, we will help people bridge the gap that it's not a stigma, it is health. And I would encourage you to include that as part of. Thank you.
Supervisor Bailey.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that, Commissioner Frazier. I say that simply because it's a stressful job that they do, you know, and that you do. So I just want to, like, in respect of that, I just want to make sure it's a totality. So thank you for embracing that. I appreciate it. And then I want to ask Dr. Snyder, have you had an opportunity to meet the new commander at Marine Corps?
Have not.
Thank you.
Follow with you.
Yes.
Mayor Rishel, and then we'll try to move on after that.
Dr. Schneider, to follow up on Supervisor Vega's question, when the testing, if the testing were to be done, would it be at no charge to the employee, and would it be done on company time so as not to in any way inconvenience the employee?
We have not drafted a policy, so I really can't answer those questions because it really would be hypotheticals. At this stage, we're less than 100 employees. We have such a high vaccination rate, unless it's something changes that requires us to do something different, then we would come back to the commission, likely meet with the executive committee. Things that could occur might come from OSHA. Requirements might come from the Federal Transit Administration. DRE is not here, but there could be requirements from the Federal Railroad Administration. So those are all different rules, and those rules would even supersede some of the items are identified by the presidential administration. So just, we don't know what those outcomes will be, but as they move forward, we'll come to the commission to enact policy because it would be personnel policy. So this is not something I would do unilaterally.
So, well, I just wanted to go on record, if there's no supervening policy from feds or any other organization, I would not want to see the onus of responsibility placed on the employee.
Yeah. And just for example, and I'm not encouraging any of these things one way or the other, in our call today, some of the things that have occurred, or there have been bonus payments made to employees to get vaccinations done. Some organizations have flat out mandated it and said that's how it is, and there's no exemption. It's you're vaccinated or you're not. There's no testing requirement. Now, if you have a medical or religious exemption, they've honored that. But if it's just doesn't hit those criteria, they've separated employment from those employees. Some organizations, just as if you use tobacco, they increase your health insurance rates. Some organizations are examining that. And so that there could be increases in health insurance premiums for unvaccinated employees. So those are just some of the things being discussed in the industry. To stress, we're not discussing that. It's just, those are some of the conversations that are happening, and we're looking to get guidance and understanding. And these are from peer agencies, peer meaning about our size. But these range from St. Louis to California to Massachusetts, a wide variety of different places.
Madam Chair.
One last question.
Thank you. I know you want to move on. I'll make it quick. So Keolis, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, and forgive me if you already said this, but is Keolis, would they pay for testing for their employees as well?
We haven't gotten to that point yet, but do remember that we are one of the companies that are over 100 employees and have to fall under some of the federal mandates.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
If we can just wait to maybe commissioner's time, just so we can move on.
Okay, go ahead.
Did you mention about the public hearing? Or did you already do that?
I already just mentioned public hearing, and then I guess the final item would be the industry article. It's a little near and dear to my heart. It's about Knoxville area transit, where I started my career. We were on the bleeding edge of technology and had electric vehicles in 2003. way sooner than we should have. But it's nice to see that those things are coming along, but I mentioned that specifically because tonight we have an item to do our zero emissions bus study. And so that's an example of we're going to be using data from peer agencies for their experience, gathering that because as the article discusses, they went at it by working with the utilities board. They didn't just buy some buses and figure it out. They went to the utilities board. Are we going to have the infrastructure? Are we going to have the charging capacity? What's the expense going to be? And then they identified some of the cost factors that you're not replacing a 1-for-1 bus. The price is 1.5 times. So there's a lot of different factors that go into that. So it was a really, really relevant article in relation to an item that you're going to be potentially voting on tonight. So thank you, Matt.
All right. Question. Thank you. Did Knoxville share any of their data regarding how long the batteries last?
They just took delivery, I think, this past week or 2 weeks ago. So they don't have any data yet.
Okay, my other question is, are there any bus companies that offer this option? I don't even know if this is feasible, but for example, for the long haul buses, that they would go back to the bus barn halfway through their day, switch out the low battery for a freshly charged battery and then be on their way. Is that an option?
No, they don't have the capacity to switch batteries because of the way the systems are integrated.
Okay. Thank you.
Now moving to item 10, 10.1, diversity, equity, and inclusion update presentation by Ben Matters.
Good evening, commission members. My name is Ben.
You may want to speak up just.
Good evening, commission members. My name is Ben Matters, chair of the DEI committee. We go to the next slide, please. So we got 7 key focus areas. These should look a little familiar, but this is basically what the strategic plan is based on. So each one of these is a very key focus for us when we think about how we have crafted these DEI metrics that we want to track and kind of use these as a way to go forward to making Omni a better place to work. So next slide, please. All right, so DEI metrics. So our first one is employees should strive to receive at least 37.5 hours of training per year. This is an industry standard. So obviously each year, HR, that being Becky and Tracy, will be giving us trainings. And so that will be included in and above what we then do as individual employees. So each individual employee is allotted $500 in training funds. So every OmniRide employee has that $500 access. So that goes also into the 37.5 hours. And so we as a group talked about it and we're like, what's a good number to strive for when you look at this $500? What should we strive to use? Because we want to set some sort of base limit for people to actually use these funds. Otherwise, it's just kind of a waste, right? And so we as a group decided 75% was a good number because there are a lot of good free trainings out there. And if you find a lot of good free trainings, you might not go through that 500. So 100% seemed pretty unreasonable. 50% didn't seem enough. So we all decided 75% is great. On top of that, new employees now go through a standardized onboarding process through our new HR system called ADP. So their induction forms, W-2s, your benefits, all that, they can see that before they actually get here day one, which is great. On top of that, now everyone sees the personnel policy. They sign that they've seen it. They all go through FMLA training. They go through sexual harassment training. And that way, everyone who is an employee of OmniRide has that kind of base of like, this is how you are an OmniRide employee. Because I think prior to our DEI group and stuff, what we really did identify was there was a general lack of training. And so some people had a lot of training, some people didn't. It just depended on what department you were at. So now everyone has that base level, and I think that's a great thing. Next slide, please. So the next thing we're really looking at is kind of our communication, transparency parts of our kind of strategic plan. So I think the commission members all receive like a bi-weekly update. We've kind of taken that idea made it a little more in-depth since we know what most departments are doing and stuff. So this has been a good way to just kind of, I'm the Van Pool Lines program manager. I don't necessarily know a lot about what's going on with the bus service because that's not something that I deal with every day. So I can always look at that and see what parents got going on, right? We started with quarterly updates from our executive director, Bob. So he will then kind of give us what the future looks like for us. You know, last year, he gave us a really great in-depth look of how the budget is actually made, what goes into that, how, you know, each jurisdictions that you guys make up goes into our budget, which a lot of rank and file staff had no idea how that went through. We just knew there was a budget, and that was kind of the end and the start of our knowledge of that. So stuff like that, getting that information from Bob at like the 50,000 degree or 50,000 feet high level is great. We have these monthly all hands meetings. That really came around because of the pandemic where you can't just say, hey, come to the conference room. So we have that standing meeting. Director level, everyone kind of says what they have going on in their departments, and that's actually been really great. Like Aaron has mentioned, oh, we're doing XYZ, and then Althea will be like, actually, before you do that, let's talk because we have to do something XYZ for the schedules. And so maybe those weren't necessarily those kind of touch points that they were getting previously because we didn't have that space to have those. So that's been really great. The next thing that's actually really great, and we've actually just today seen kind of what this can do, is we have this new HR software called ADP. It's for benefits, stuff like that. It's also now, if I were applying to Omniride, I apply through this ADP portal. That allows us to track race and gender of our applicant pool. And that's really important because we want to make sure that we are getting a wide breadth of applicants to make sure that we're not being exclusive. So with people self-identifying what they're doing and how they identify, we can then tweak stuff. So if we realize, oh, well, we're doing really good at maybe, you know, starting positions and mid-level positions, but once we get to the senior staff level, it's not a very diverse applicant pool. How do we then change how we're, you know, broadcasting out and how we're advertising for this job opening? And so I think that's going to really be key for us to go forward and really kind of stay focused on being a diverse place to work. Next slide, please. So we are close as a working group to being done with our progress report. It takes a village to, you know, do this. And so we've kind of divvied it up and we're all writing and proofreading and editing, and not being able to be necessarily in the same room has its challenges when you're asking what version of which document you're actually on and stuff. So that's been great. We're hoping to do an employee survey, kind of like we did in 2017. And that's really, we're just going to do the same exact survey that was done in 2017, 2018. And what that's allowing us to do is really kind of gauge all these things that we've done, you know, the communication boards, the deep dives, these all hands. Where are we at now compared to where we were in 2017, 2018? And what needs to be better? What are we doing a good job at? You know, it's you can kind of focus on what's bad, but it's also important to focus on staff-led initiative. I think we need to be cognizant to really take a step back and be like, that's a lot of work that we've done and it's been really good. And then outside of that, the DEI will be making a page on Omniride where our strategic plan will live, our progress reports will live, and it's just an outward facing thing that we can, you know, hang our hats on. You know, people like Byron and Christine who are parts of this committee can be like, yeah, we did that. And with that, I'll take questions.
Any questions for Mr. Matters, Mr. Skinner?
Yeah, I hate to go back to it, but on the $500 that you give each employee, is that reimbursable, meaning that if they do something and the question is 37.5 hours, is it done here? What is the $500? What would it actually be used for?
So we budget $500 per employee for training. It's just an automatic number. So that could be for a management training class, an Excel class, a customer service class. For example, for our telephone, folks or TSAs who answer the phone support, it might be an accounting class. HR is a great example with new laws changing or safety protocols. So that's just a number that we base for every employee. The goal is for every employee to use at least 50% of that, recognizing that some employee training for maybe an advanced accounting class might be more expensive than the other. So it's not a here's $500, go get trained. And what's different is it's not the manager deciding, it's the employee working with the manager to find out where do you want to improve? It could be writing, it could be Toastmasters, variety of different things that are necessary to develop employees. And it's not just training, it could also be professional development. So for example, we just had our VTA conference last week, about 20 employees went. So that was about 18 hours probably combined, or maybe 14 hours combined over those 2 days. So that builds towards those hours, and then the fees we spent for that professional development offsets those expenses. So that's what we want to do and track that. Previously, it's been feast or famine. Some people got really well trained, went to a lot of conferences, and some people never left it off. Our goal is to level that playing field and enhance the skill sets that our employees have on a consistent basis.
So Dr. Bob, on the 37.5, how much can actually be done here on site?
The vast majority occurs on site, especially now with the pandemic. It's webinars, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. Matters? Okay, Supervisor Bailey.
Thank you very much. Excuse my potato chips. Great report. Thank you so much for sharing. Did I miss the last meeting? Forgive me for I've sinned. I did, I'm good? Okay, thank you.
Brother Angry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Madam, I love to get with you after this, or maybe give you my card. I got a lot of questions, but not for this, so just really about the whole process. I'm interested, so, all right, thank you, sir.
And then the working group, will that be ongoing even, because I know you're working on the progress report, and then the surveys will be sent out?
Yes, so this is a standing group, will always exist. You know, once the progress report is done and we're more in that kind of data gathering mode, we might not meet as much. But as things pop up, you know, as we get results from employee surveys and stuff, there'll be more to kind of ruminate around and think about. And as more people actually come back to the building, you know, that's where we have 2 facilities now. How do we keep those open lines of communication and stuff like that? So that's definitely something that the DEI will be working on.
And then I know that employees could kind of come and go as they please in terms of participation. Have you seen an increase in participation or a decrease?
It's been pretty steady, honestly. You know, some people, as it started, were there, and then a standing meeting got in the way of that. And so, you know, we are talking about, we've always had it the third Thursday or whatever at 10, but maybe needs to move around a little bit so that, you know, the same folks aren't always missing out. And that's something we're actually going to talk about next meeting.
Any other questions?
Yes, a couple of comments. Number one, this is an employee-led group. I don't go to the meetings. And that's by design. Ben and others, it's not just Ben. Ben gives me an update and report, but Christine will tell me what they talked about, and Janelle will tell me what they talked about. Different employees take away different things, which is what's important. But on no one's job description that participates in this does it say and shall participate in this group. There is no extra pay bump. There is no parade at the end of the year. We appreciate, we value every employee in the organization genuinely cares about the work and the work product. The screens, the emails, all those things. So, well, shouldn't that be normal? Well, it should, but the number of organizations that struggle to communicate, and we don't include employees in our communication, is staggering. And that's one of the big differences. You're like, well, you're just sharing the stuff you do. Correct. And that is really, really, really hard. As elected officials, I'm sure every single meeting you go into, you hear the words, well, I didn't know that. And so the challenge of getting that done when we work in such different and diverse areas, hats off to the group who really made a big difference and shifted not just how we communicate, but also what we communicate about and why. So just wanted to say thank you, Ben, for all the work you've done over the past year and a half, or maybe 2, or maybe 2.5. We were trying to figure out earlier today, and with the pandemic, there's no sense of time. But I think he mentioned in the DEI call today, or the all hands call, he's going to be stepping down from this role as the committee chair at the end of the year. It is time to shake things up and do something a little different. And that's part of it, as well as recognizing even with change, you need to make change in your change. And that's the next step for that. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Can I just have a really silly question that just came to my mind? I'm curious, do you all here at PRTC, do you have like a fantasy football team or anything
Yes,
sports
I got my
related?
butt kicked by Christine.
I don't play it anymore because I was cheering for the wrong players on the wrong team.
But I mean, but there is fun stuff like that, because of course, I think that's always a great way to really get to know the people that you work with. And I mean, I do love Vic Angry, even though he is a Cowboys fan.
That's right. That's right.
Everyone has faults, I agree.
Jets fan, so there's not much.
Yeah, I like the Cowboys. I'm a Jets fan too, from New York, so I understand your struggles.
Wait, where are you from?
I'm from New York.
You like New York, you're not from Dallas?
I will say, Ben, we do appreciate your service, and thank you for helping to lead the charge. I know you have a few others that have been kind of working on this as well with the working group, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Matters? Thank you, sir. We're ignoring Supervisor Andrews. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll now move into item 11, our action items. 11.1 to authorize the executive director to award a zero emissions bus study contract to Kimley Horn and Associates. This authorizes our executive director to award a contract to Kimley Hero to conduct a study for zero emissions buses to compare various alternative fuel types, costs, and benefits.
Yes. So to be clear on this, this is actually 50% funded by the state. The rest of it is funded by the jurisdictions for the bus sponsoring jurisdictions. Prince William is shouldering the load of that on 25% of the total. So the total project in and of itself is $150,000. It is funded. Again, no direct local impact from the non-bus sponsoring jurisdictions. So we're excited about this. We're not just looking at electric. We're looking at multiple different technologies, but what we're also paying attention to are what the infrastructure needs, what the utility company needs, and it really is also looking at what are some best practices. To Mayor Ruschel's question about, well, what data do we have from a Knoxville, et cetera? What's great is there's a tremendous amount of data that we've got out there. They just got their vehicles, but we have relationships with Foothill Transit. We have relationships in Seattle, which will pay dividends when we get to a future item about our bus purchasing. So a lot of different transit systems are exploring this. A lot of them are just dipping a toe in the water. We don't, because we're a commuter service predominantly, we have to evaluate this a little differently. We can't really just drip in a couple of buses and see how it goes. We have the MCI fleet, we have the Gillig fleet, they serve different functions. We have to be far more strategic in what we do.
Is there a motion?
A movement, Chair.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Bailey, seconded by Supervisor Bodie. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Lawson?
Thank you. Dr. Snyder, you mentioned something earlier, but I thought you said Nashville. But you just mentioned Knoxville.
Knoxville.
Okay, did you mention that there was an article in our packet?
About Knoxville.
Okay, I don't know if I just didn't get it. Maybe my staff didn't print it.
Okay, it's an industry article, so it's a summary of just a blurb about that, and then it's why it matters.
Okay, so I'm kind of struggling with this because as much as I might appreciate the intent of the study, it's not an endorsement of moving to zero
Correct.
emissions. And is this gonna tell us like, you know, a timeline as well as projected cost? And
Our expectation is that when we're done, we'll have an understanding of what infrastructure exists at this facility and what potential infrastructure exists at the western facility. What will be fleet replacement costs so that the commission has an understanding of this is what it will cost to continue to operate the ultra low sulfur diesel fleet versus an electric fleet. These would be utility costs, these would be capital costs, this would be the infrastructure costs, and give us based upon what best fits our geographic area and our type of service, and then a recommendation of, okay, this is the technology that we would recommend, but then come in with this is what it's going to cost, and these are going to be your barriers. And I then lay that bare so then the commission can make the decision as to, is this something we adopted at what level? This isn't a, hey, let's go figure out which one to buy. This is a compass.
Is it in our strategic plan?
Yes.
Okay. And what's our ridership numbers right now? 50%?
On the commuter services, we're about 50% productivity, and it would be higher, but of course Delta. So, and then local services, depending on the route, between 50 and 85%.
Okay. I mean, I'd rather spend the money getting our ridership numbers up, but I'm sure I'll be in the minority on that, and I'll be curious to see what the cost is.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Vega.
Thank you. Can you remind me again why Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania have a 0 next to the contribution and breakdown?
Yes, they are a non-local route sponsoring jurisdiction, so this is focused on existing services, so it just doesn't.
Sometimes that's why we're here too. It's gas tax money, it's gotta come here, and we gotta be here for this.
I didn't even hear the first part of
But
it.
based upon the data, we'll be there soon.
That's true.
Any other comments? Supervisor Allen?
I have a question for you about, my only concern is, and I'm in favor of getting the study done, but I'm worried, is there sufficient data that supports eventually going there? Because New York, as I just mentioned, I know when they kind of rolled out their move towards an electric hybrid system a couple of years ago, I mean, the buses weren't, they had pretty terrible feedback. And it took them considerable time to rectify that. It also involves spending a ton of money and not just doing it, also getting their mechanics, because my father-in-law is actually one of them, up to speed to be able to handle that. And hybrid buses are a great, difficult challenge than what we have. And so I'm hoping when we do get that information, we are also given the potential difficulties that can happen.
Yes. Things that we are very, very attuned to. So and we could spend literally hours here talking about this. We don't want to. But an example is, in order to get battery life to last longer, they make it lighter. Well, if you make something heavy duty lighter, eventually that item will crack. So if you go online and you type in SEPTA, which is Southeastern Pennsylvania or Philly's transit system, they've had problems with their Proterra frames cracking. That's a really, really big deal because they had issues with their rail cars where their axles were cracking. So they're super, super sensitive to that. So in Philadelphia, that's what they're watching. So they get to about 6 years and just the torsion twisting of the chassis over time breaks it apart. Well, then you have New Flyer who doesn't take that approach. They do a different frame system. Well, that frame system is more durable, but it's heavier. So now you're trading off range. That's part of what this does is it looks at what type of services we operate. For commuter services, it's a couple hours in the morning, then the buses come in, park in the middle of the day and go back out. That's perfect for recharging time. But what if Novak doesn't have the grid load to let the vehicles recharge? That's why we pull in the utility companies. So this really is for us to look at what are the headaches, what are the fatal flaws, what are the big issues, what is the capital cost? If there's not a pipeline, there's not enough power to get down that corridor, and it's going to cost us $1 million, just making this number up, $1 million to bring in the electrical grid to get the volume there. Is that something that the commission has the appetite for? That's what this is designed to do, so that we don't wade into a pool not knowing what's underneath the surface.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Vega.
If we wanted to wait, would this state funding still be available? Let's say if we put it off for a year?
Do you know the technical requirements on that? The money's not gonna expire anytime soon. We could extend the grant, but, you know, if you were decided, you know, ultimately not to do the study, obviously, the money would go away. But I think we would be happy to work with you on, you know, extending the time frame if that's what the board wanted to do. But, you know, we did award it as FY22 money, so the expectation was that it would start in FY22 and be completed soon thereafter. So, but I think DRPT would be willing to work with PRTC on an extension if that's what the board wants.
Something to consider. We keep talking about the unknowns and trying to recover from this pandemic. I just don't know if there's an urgency really for this right now.
If I may ask, the funds for this, is it specific to this type of, it can't be used for other things?
No, PRTC did apply for this particular study to our technical assistance program, and we evaluated it based on this particular scope of work.
And how long would the study take roughly?
That would be really up to PRTC on how long the actual study would take. Normally, our technical assistance grants are 12 months, 18 months of duration, you know, but we do have mechanisms to extend the expiration date of those if needed. But, you know, we don't want to extend a study grant for 4 or 5 years. You know, we want our study to be complete as soon as it can be completed.
I think what we have to keep in mind is that as we think about COVID, we have COVID funds that we can use for different things like personnel, supplement where we're losing in ridership, but then we have grants that can only be used for specific things. So it's not like if we waited, we could use this funding for something else. It can only be used for what we applied for. So I kind of don't know if I see the point in waiting.
October to April, so it should be done by the end of April. That's the projected deliverable date.
Yeah, because if you push it back, you can still only use it for this. Supervisor Lawson?
Thank you. So, you know, my preference was spend money on getting our ridership up, but I'm hearing now that's just not a source that we can't use the money for that. It has to be specifically.
This was awarded under DRP's technical assistance grant program, which is basically for studies. I mean, you know, obviously we have other programs, but this particular funding was awarded under that.
So back to Dr. Schneider's point though about the electrical grid, are these grids that are, you know, the source is renewable energies, or where's electricity? What's the source of the electricity?
I'm gonna have to defer to them. We don't know yet, because that's really a Novak question, and that's where Novak. So I know that they're our partner out west. I don't remember who we pay for this
If
facility.
it's still fossil fuels, then that defeats the whole purpose of.
Potentially, but from the standpoint of when do we make that migration, and then also what is this? When are they generating renewable energy?
Can we defer this till maybe next month and get some more answers? I guess, I mean, because Commissioner Allen brought up some other really good points about the effects on labor. I don't know. I would like to know a little bit more, and I apologize that I don't know more before this discussion, but I definitely want to look into that article that you mentioned.
Mr. Kelly?
If I'm not mistaken, and I'll stand correct, Bob, but first off, I want to applaud staff for doing this, because so many jurisdictions are just running off and saying, they're all gonna be electric, so let's go do it. And they're getting way ahead of themselves, and wait, we're gonna read stories about how that's come. So here we are taking an effort to answer the purpose of this report is to answer those questions. You know, what are the labor issues? How much additional training personnel are we going to have to do? What are the stations are going to do? What does the technology look like? And it's not just electrical, I'm assuming it's everything. Frankly, our Fred system is looking to, you know, the city's looking to go to this also. And the fact of the matter is, and I don't think anybody would disagree with this is the direction we're going. I mean, this is the future, is going into renewable energies and different fuel systems, everything else like that. So I don't see why delaying it, because the questions you're trying to have answered before you take this vote is the purpose of this report, is to get those answers.
All right, you just.
So you have the ideas to whether we go forward.
You just convinced me, Matt.
Okay.
Well, Todd's response also, I mean, I understand grants, and if it's specific to this, then it makes sense.
No, I'll just add that, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
I was just,
Okay.
yeah. He said what I was gonna say. So.
Yeah, I'll just add that we appreciate PRTC willing to do a study before, as Mr. Kelly said, you know, rushing into an electric
converted. We do have systems around the state who did not study it necessarily, and just started buying electric buses. And so, that we applaud PRTC for taking this step for making a commitment.
I'm looking forward to ripping it off and taking credit.
Oh, now you want to.
So we do have a motion on the floor.
You guys spend the money and we'll go ahead and take advantage of it.
Mayor Richel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A quick question, when the analysis is done regarding the equipment and the technology, will they compare technology made in the USA as opposed to that which might be imported from overseas? Because I'm thinking of supply chain, potential supply chain issues.
So a couple items there. Number one, no, and the reason they won't is because there's already an existing Buy America clause. So every transit vehicle in the United States must be built in the United States. Now, does that mean that they buy their maybe computer chips from overseas? Absolutely. Where might that tire get imported from, or the raw materials? Foam comes out of Texas. Well, I did not realize that a massive freeze in February would disrupt the furniture industry. So there's just a lot of different supply chain issues, but the Buy America clause is a big deal. And that's where, for example, there's a Chinese company named BYD who has come into the marketplace. And so that's part of, they have to meet Buy America requirements. You just can't automatically just put something on their cargo ship and send it over.
All right, one more question.
Yeah, I
then we're
did
gonna
have
move
one more,
on.
and it's just a clarification question. As part of the study, are they gonna, and this is to Commissioner Lawson, what she was asking, is Novak, and I'm guessing Dominion on this side, would they be looking into using their power or potentially having solar as well?
And that's part of the conversation with them.
Okay.
So it's like, for example, we don't have solar panels built onto our buildings. But part of this conversation may be through in consultation with them, hey, you guys should add solar equipment to your giant flat buildings. There's things that you can do and also take best practices. We're a little different from places like Las Vegas or Tucson or Phoenix that have a tremendous amount of solar opportunity. So again, to Supervisor Lawson's point, some of this is actually fossil fuel, but some of it is renewable. It just depends on where the source of the grid is, and they'll answer some of that. It's also not just that, but it's also where is the technology evolving to over the next 5 to 10 years? And so it may not be something that we buy tomorrow. It may not be something we buy in 5 years. We may have to lay out a strategy to address some of the infrastructure items, but then know in 10 years, we're going to start buying this type of vehicle and having those kinds of questions pre-answered and laid out so that we're ready.
Christine, will you call the roll?
Victor Angry?
Aye.
Andrea Bailey?
Aye.
Kenny Bodie?
Aye.
Margaret Franklin?
Aye.
Janine Lawson?
Aye.
Leslie Vega?
Yes.
Tanisha Allen? Pamela Sabeski?
Yes.
Jeanette Richel?
Yes.
Matthew Kelly?
Aye.
Deborah Frazier?
Aye.
Gary Skinner?
Aye.
Todd Horsley?
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman?
Yeah.
And George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Okay. We have items 11.2 and 11.3. I'm going to offer to combine those if, without any objection. And so 11.2 is to authorize the executive director to enter into a transit bus cooperative agreement with the Washington State Department of Enterprise and Services to purchase commuter and local transit buses. And then this is for future bus purchases. And then item 11.3 is to endorse the updated PRTC Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. This action would endorse the updated safety plan and authorize submitting the plan to FTA as required. The changes consist of updating the title of Manager of Safety and Security to Director and updating the safety performance targets for FY22 based on safety incidents in FY21. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Schneider to explain both of those.
Yes, I'll start with 11.3 since the chair covered the vast majority of it. It is the first year we did it, we had to establish baselines. Now that we're reporting and recording, we have firm baselines versus projected. So again, it's technical change of title and then updating the performance metrics. And this has to be submitted to FTA. It's a federal requirement. So it's very straightforward there. 11.2 is historically we purchase buses either one of two ways. We'll either purchase through the state of Virginia and their contracts, or we will exercise assigned options with different transit systems around the country. Perrin, where are some places we've joined in partners with?
We're in Fork Transportation Authority in the Colorado was our last purchase that we belong to. And we also have some options with AC Transit in California.
So very common for us to do this. Unfortunately, when we went out to market, some of the different groups did not fit the Virginia state code in terms of we just couldn't get the overlay to match. Washington state does. So Ms. Pandak reviewed this on our behalf. This is advantageous in that some of the best transit systems in the United States are operating out of Washington. So you've got Olympia Transit is fantastic. So Pierce out of Tacoma, King County, Snohomish, Sound, we can rattle off the systems. So for them and the level of equipment they purchase, it's a great opportunity. And they also operate some of the double deckers we're looking at for the future. So this not only puts us on that same exact contract line item, it also opens the door for us to get a lot more data and information through our partnerships. So we're actually quite excited about this procurement opportunity as opposed to someone that doesn't have a one-for-one match for our services.
Are there actually any questions, I guess, first Supervisor Bailey?
Move to approve 11-2.
Motion by Supervisor Bailey, seconded by Supervisor Lawson. Any discussion on any of those items? Okay, Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Andrea Bailey.
Aye.
Kenny Bodie.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Aye.
Leslie Vega. Tanisha Allen. Pamela Sadesky.
Aye.
Jeanette Richel.
Yes.
Matthew Kelly.
Aye.
Deborah Frazier.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman.
Yes.
George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Okay, we'll now move into item 12, chairs time. Two things we need to do tonight. Number one, we need to form a legislative committee to draft PRTC state and federal legislative agenda for 2022. Any volunteers? Supervisor Bodie. Okay, looking at Lawson. Yeah, how many do we need on that, like, is there any particular number?
Madam Chair, typically I just like 2 or 3 people to bounce ideas off of. What are some priorities? It helps me understand what some of the focus and interest areas for the region are. And then when we draft our federal and state, we just kind of goal alignment and then it comes back to the commission in a draft form and then gets approved.
And it'll be helpful to have a number of people from different jurisdictions.
I volunteer.
Mayor Richel, Supervisor Bodie.
I volunteer, Mr. Kelly.
Okay, he's not taking the bait. Anybody else?
That's fun.
You have Mayor Richel, I think
Okay.
that takes us from here.
Anybody from the General Assembly? I guess they'll be lobbying.
Yeah.
Then maybe that makes sense.
Transportation Subcommittee.
An idea or two
Yeah,
may
not
get bounced from
Okay.
it. Let's just say that.
Ms. Frazier? And then, so we'll take these individuals, and if you decide you want to join, just, feel free to let us know. The next thing, we need to put together a nominating committee for officers and alternates for 2022. And it's my understanding that we need one person from each jurisdiction. So I guess we should start with anybody who wants to volunteer from Prince William County. Roger Bodie, Prince William, is that okay?
I think he's agreed.
I volunteer Supervisor.
I volunteer Supervisor Skinner, his last hurrah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just go down the jurisdiction just so I can keep it clear. Manassas Park.
I guess.
Yeah.
So we need to put a hat on when you answer the questions.
City of Manassas,
I echo Mayor Richel.
and I'm assuming someone else is writing this down as well.
Just you put them in there.
Someone else writing.
We'll get them.
Stafford County,
We can only switch these.
We have an
Okay.
election with the other, so.
You got
we won't
too
know
much on
until
your plate.
After November, we won't know until January, because we have
This
I'm
is
sorry.
just
This is
for forming the
the
nominating
nominating
committee.
committee.
Oh,
Yep. Okay, so Tanisha, I'll just.
no, Supervisor Lamb, she's not here, so stick around.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Just so everybody knows, this committee is, first of all, you're gonna ask anybody who wants to be nominated, put the name in the thing to do this, okay? And basically, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take these names that you may get, you may not get, and find where you got the empty spots, and then go out and sort of look for people, ask them if they really want to do this, you know, if they haven't already done it. So it's a good job, but so people understand what you do.
If I might, Madam Chair, Supervisor Skinner is correct, but each of the people who will come on the commission will be approved by your jurisdiction.
Right.
So it's corralling.
Yeah.
It is corralling, I did it last year, it definitely was corralling.
Fredericksburg.
The only thing I would say is, many moons ago, we kind of realized that this is primarily bus operation, and we have kind of slid out of even serving on the executive committee, let alone nominating anybody for the executive committee.
But the bylaw said we had to have.
Okay, fine. We tried to say that, again, we kind of defer to Prince William because you're the big boys in the room when it comes to all that stuff with trains. buses.
And then Spotsylvania.
I won't be here.
This is the next,
You'll be here.
meeting or the next.
No,
It's
hey,
not
Gary,
that
you're gonna
big.
be here long enough, man.
We'll ask for Rob.
You just threw me under the bus, excuse me.
I see what you did there.
Okay.
I believe that is the case. Ms. Van Dyke, this has to be voted on tonight, correct?
The nominating committee, yes, you need to have your committee tonight.
So we have to have a name for each jurisdiction.
Is this could be a virtual meeting?
I got too much
Yeah.
stuff.
It's gonna be a
Next
virtual
few
I
years,
don't-
I've got-
We're not prepared to do virtual.
Okay, just so we don't have crosstalk.
Madam Chair, if I might, and I think Vice Mayor Sabeski did it really well last year in terms of corralling people. So it was not unduly burdensome, as I recollect. We had names that were going to come up from each jurisdiction. In the case of Prince William, I have already communicated with County Attorney Michelle Roble. So she says you all are on track to make your appointees. We understand that there are some elections that are happening, so we're prepared for the last minute additions as necessary. So I want to give you just a little pep talk. It's not a huge problem. We
Yeah.
have lots on your plates. but
Yes. So we need someone from Spotsylvania.
So I'll do it, that's fine, but most of these gonna be over conference calls or Zoom meetings.
Yeah, I don't even know you had a meeting, did you?
Yeah. We couldn't because we were in the pandemic.
That's correct.
So I was gonna say, I think that how it was done before last year was that this committee met at like 6:30 before our 7 o'clock meeting and just said, this is who my jurisdiction is putting on this is who my jurisdiction is putting on it, and you know, it's not like it takes a lot of time. You just need to know who your jurisdiction is planning, not that that couldn't change, but planning to appoint to this committee, and that's it. So it's not like it, you know.
No, that's fine.
But I had to call
Yeah.
each person and track everybody down because, you know, we couldn't have a in-person meeting.
Okay, so I'm just gonna run over who we have, and then there needs to be a motion. Prince William County Supervisor Bodie, Manassas Park, Mayor Rischel, City of Manassas, Ms. Sabeski, Stafford County, Tanisha Allen, Fredericksburg, Matt Kelly, and Spotsylvania, Gary Skinner.
Yes, and then Madam Chair, that's, you're gonna elect, and then you probably should have a chair. So, you don't have to worry about
I would nominate Ms.
I already did it last year.
That's why you're a known hand, you're deputy.
So are you okay with that?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm only doing it next year, so somebody else has to think about it. You do the I'm like, I'm done.
So Sharon,
So you have a chair.
Right.
And Vice Mayor Sabeski, and you have the names for the committee. I think if you have a motion for that in a second, you can proceed.
Second.
moved by Supervisor Angry, seconded by Supervisor Bodie. Any discussion?
I just have a point of clarification. Ms. Van Dyke, when we're nominating, does every jurisdiction have to have someone on the executive committee or no? In terms of.
No.
Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry,
Aye.
Andrea Bailey.
Aye.
Kenny Bodie.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin. Aye. Janine Lawson. Aye. Leslie Vega. Yes. Tanisha Allen. Pamela Sabesky.
Aye.
Jeanette Richel.
Yes.
Matthew Kelly.
Aye.
Deborah Frazier.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
He's gonna abstain. Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Elizabeth Guzman. I think she hung up off the call. And George Barker. Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Okay, I don't have any other updates, so with that, we'll move into item 13, which is commissioners' time. If you have an update, feel free. If not, you can pass. We'll start with Mr. Skinner.
Aye, pass.
Ms. Allen, Ms. Vega.
I'd like to start by passing.
That's my.
Pass.
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 Yes.
I'll interrupt the passing. I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. Our chair spent a few years down in Knoxville, Tennessee. Our executive director started his career in Knoxville, Tennessee. So next month's meeting is at the train station in downtown Knoxville, where I had my high school reunion.
All right. I'm all for that. Just let me know where to get on the
So
plane.
the old, in the, World's Fair. Okay.
Supervisor Bodie?
Pass.
I do have one thing, so, DRPT is, we're coming to a close on our Springfield to Quantico Enhanced Public Transportation Study. It's due to the General Assembly December 1st. We're on track to do that. We had our final technical assistance committee meeting today. We have our final elected official briefing next Thursday. You're, everyone should have their invitation. Please plan to attend that.
That's why I passed.
Madam Chair, if I just find, Ms. Rodriguez did not get the names of the people on the legislative committees.
Okay.
Mr. Bodie and Mayor Richard.
Just you.
Thank you.
Yep. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Aye.
All right, without objection. Thank you.
Well done. I appreciate it all. Yes, please. I'll get the specs for you. So you can get
Never told me that. Entire time, he never told me that.